So welcome to our online briefing this morning for the expression of interest for the assisted relocation after flood project. My name's Nicole Moore and I'm one of the node research managers here with Natural Hazards Research Australia. This briefing is going to be recorded. Kyle, if you could click the record button, that'd be great. And we'll make it available on the project page on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting across a range of different unceded Aboriginal lands today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, especially for the Turrbal and Yagara peoples where I'm based at here in Meanjin in Brisbane. And recognise that the lands and waters that we all work and live on have always been places of teaching, research and learning. And First Nations peoples have long cared for country as kin and continue to do so today. All of us can play a role in dismantling the ongoing processes of colonisation by supporting Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people on this journey. After all, we all share the same fundamental goal of resilient and sustainable landscapes and communities and everything in between. So we've got some lovely artwork on this slide that was created by Leanne Brooks, and it reflects our reconciliation action plan. What I love about this image is if you have a look in the middle, you'll see these hands holding the fire, and it's about, you know, the future is in our hands, yeah, which is just so lovely, yeah. So what we're going to cover in today's online briefing is some preliminary introductions, some information about Natural Hazards Research Australia, some information on the background of this project and its objectives, the outputs that the project's looking for, the governance and reporting requirements and systems, and the EOI process. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end for question time. I might ask Kyle if he could put a link to the EOI webpage in the chat for you so that you've got access to all of the material that we will be talking about in this presentation. The answers to questions that you ask as part of this briefing will be transcribed and shared on the project page under the frequently asked questions section. You can ask questions at any time via the chat or by raising your hand. Just bear in mind that those of us that are sharing our screen, i.e. me, can't see when your hand's up. So maybe Kyle or some of the others might be able to help me if the hands go up. Essentially, what we're after this morning is an easy flowing, not too formal briefing. The chat's open, use it as much as you like. You can put comments in, questions, etc. at any time. We should have time towards the end for Q&A if we need to ask more. But the important thing about today is that you, the researchers, get to ask questions and clarify aspects of the call for expressions of interest. Hopefully you'll get a good understanding of what we have in mind for this project and a good understanding around the EOI process so that you're in a solid position to put in a good EOI submission together. We really appreciate the time and effort that goes into responses for calls for EOIs, and this is your chance to get what you need from us. It's also your opportunity to introduce yourself to others that are online today, sharing your field of interest in the case that you may want to collaborate with other researchers that are online in developing a consortium submission. So I'd like you to consider that as we go through as well. So some introductions. So I've already introduced myself. So I'm the Node Research Manager and I work with our end user participants in Queensland and Northern Territory mostly, but I manage projects at a national level. Kyle Smith, who's kindly driving Zoom from the back end. Thanks, Kyle. Kyle's a project officer with our research services team, and both Kyle and myself are dedicated to this project, which means we'll be the two folk from NHRA that are servicing and supporting this project going forward. And we're really pleased to have with us this morning two representatives from New South Wales Reconstruction Authority who are here to talk about the two key programs that this project relates to that they're in the process of implementing in the Northern Rivers region. So Meg Lowry, who's the Acting Director for the Resilient Homes Program, is with us. And hopefully we've also got Stephen Timms from he's the Director of the Resilient Lands Program in New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. So these two folk will provide you some more detail on those two programs, which are key to this project. So a little bit about NHRA first, for those of you who don't know about us or haven't heard about us before. We actually stand on the shoulders, if you like, of the former Bushfire Cooperative Research Centre and the Bushfire and Natural Hazards Cooperative Centre. So in July 2021, there was a new bespoke funding agreement negotiated with the Commonwealth Government. And this new agreement provides a new operating model, and hence we're now Natural Hazards Research Australia. This new model also enables a greater flexible approach to the research that we conduct. But key to it is that all of our research is end user driven research. So we conduct 2 investment rounds each year where centre participant agencies or partner agencies can submit research ideas that are aligned to the key focus areas that we have within our biennial research plan. And it goes through a process, and then there are recommendations made to the board, and those projects that are approved by the board then get funded to proceed. And this project was a concept submitted by New South Wales Reconstruction Authority and is focused on the assisted relocation components of the 2 programs that New South Wales Reconstruction is rolling out at the moment, and that is the Resilient Homes Program and the Resilient Lands Program. It's come about from the extreme rainfall experienced in the Northern Rivers region across February, March 2022. And these programs that are being run in Northern Rivers are aimed to strengthen the community's adaptive capacity through assisted relocations and really present a new model of how disaster impacted regions can transition towards a more sustainable and resilient future. Looking at these 2 programs presents a valuable opportunity for learning and application in real time, informing not only the program and customer service improvements in Northern Rivers context, but also outlining key lessons that can inform broader policy development for post-disaster recovery and managed retreat. So I'll take a breath now, and I'll hand you over to Meg Lowry and Stephen Timms, who'll provide you with some more details on these 2 programs. And Meg and Stephen, just let me know when you need me to change the slides over. So Meg, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicola. Good morning, everyone. I'll just note that we also have Jane Holden on the line, our Acting Executive Director for the Northern Rivers team. So Jane, obviously feel free to jump in at any point as well. So the Resilient Homes Program, as Nicola said, was established after the February 22 events and is funded under the DRFA funding arrangement, so jointly funded by the New South Wales and Commonwealth governments and attached to the AGRNs 1012 and 1025. We do have 2 streams within the program, so we have our buyback stream and our resilient measures stream, which we're not focusing on in this project, so focusing in this project in the buyback stream. The program has evolved since the launch of the program in November 22 through the natural delivery of the program and evolution of the program and various program prioritisation changes. So properties are eligible for a buyback are considered at the most significant risk of future flooding and are eligible for the program where the homeowner has retained ownership of the property from the time of the event to the time in which they submit their application to the RHP and progress through the program. Once we've determined the eligibility of a property to continue through the buyback stream, we do make an offer to purchase the property based on a valuation that's completed. So we consider both the pre-flood market value of the property immediately prior to the flooding events and then the current market value of the property as well, and pay just terms compensation in order to offer a fair and equitable package for the homeowner to consider. a quick overview of the status of the program of where we're at. So we operate across the 7 LGAs from the Tweed through to the Clarence Valley in the northern, across all the, and there are buybacks across all of the LGAs. Some areas have a heavier focus of buybacks than others. We've made 928 offers across the region to date, with 794 of those offers accepted and 677 settlements completed. And throughout the evolution of the program, we've also tried to introduce policies and support mechanisms to enable people to take up the offer and relocate and move on into whatever that next circumstance may be. So if we jump to the next slide, and I might jump around a little bit, sorry, Nicola. But we've through the program, we've implemented, sorry, I think that slide must have dropped out. We've implemented a number of policies to support homeowners. So homeowners who accept a buyback through the program are also able to retain the option to relocate their buyback dwelling. So the dwelling is excluded from the sale contract, and then they're allowed 12 months to relocate that dwelling. We do place some conditions on the relocation of the dwelling in terms of where it ends up. So that being ideally in a lower flood risk area. So the new site for the property does need to be outside of our priority mapped areas, which determine the prioritisation framework for the program. Homeowners can also gift their dwelling to an individual of their choice as well through their sale contract. So if they themselves don't want to retain the dwelling, then they can gift that to a third party to relocate. And really, with that policy, we're trying to acknowledge that there is some housing challenges within the region. These are beautiful homes that people are really attached to as well, having been part of their families for a really long period of time. So we're definitely seeing people take up those options. We're definitely seeing an increase in multi-generational living as well. So people relocating their buyback dwelling onto a relative's larger property, so that there'd be multiple dwellings within those sites as well. So we're looking to try and support that as much as possible. Where a property hasn't been identified for relocation by a homeowner or a giftee, we are also making those dwellings available for sale through our sale program. So members of the public can also now purchase properties through our auction program, and the same conditions in terms of the relocation within 12 months and to lower flood risk land apply to those purchases as well through the program. To support homeowners who are completing a home relocation of their buyback property, so where it is their home that they're relocating, we've also introduced some occupancy arrangements, which allows the residents to stay living within the dwelling for a temporary period of time, right up until the point that they're ready to relocate that dwelling to the new site as well. So we're looking as much as possible to enable people to make that choice and facilitate that through the program as well. So we have a team that support the relocations process there as well. In terms of reuse and recycling of materials, we're trying to encourage that as much as possible. So homeowners can also opt to include contract exclusions within their contract, and take materials from their property prior to settlement. So that includes things like external sheds and carports. It can include solar panels, air conditioning units, kitchen and bathroom fixtures and fittings and cabinetry. And more than 350 of our homeowners have taken up the option to have contract exclusions included in their contract, so they can take materials with them from their former home into whatever their new circumstance looks like as well. So that's been a really positive initiative as well. I might just pause there and I'll just pause and see, Jane, if there's anything that you wanted to add to the context of the program and the current status.
Yeah, thanks, Meg. Probably just to mention that some of these properties that have been bought back, we're also putting out to public auction. So for people who aren't so, if people who have sold these houses back to the government, if they haven't opted to use the relocation clause or gift clause, then obviously RA has to either has to then remove that house from the land as a condition of our funding, and we look to relocate as many of those houses as possible. And one way to do that is to offer it back into the market. And we're seeing some homeowners who have been flood impacted, take up, purchase those properties, but also other investors and others that are looking to relocate mainly those houses in the region. And we're also working with various state agencies to use some of the houses for community or social housing.
Thanks, Jane. That's lovely. Beautiful detail there in terms of the range of the program, but also the complexities. Yeah. And I think it's perfectly primed to warrant a case study. So I'm really excited about this project. I'm wondering if we've got Steve Timms with us, because the next slide relates to the Resilient Lands program. Steve, are you with us online?
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Can you hear me okay?
We can. That's awesome. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And yeah, thanks for having us along too. It's great to see so much interest in our programs. I work in this space, so I find it fascinating. So I'm glad that other people do as well. So I'm Director of Resilient Lands program at RA. Been here about 12 months or so. Did a fair bit of work in Christchurch, earthquake recovery over there as well, and various bits and pieces in the UK and other things too. But yeah, I'll just provide a brief overview of the Resilient Lands program, which I guess primarily was designed to assist with the RHP. So significantly less funding, but important component of delivering the Resilient Homes program as well. It's fully state government funded, whereas the RHP's got federal funding and state funding. Just to point the distinction there. And, it's primarily stood up because the housing market wouldn't be able to deliver for the RHP buyback participants. So there's people that are living on the floodplain have got a buyback at their at market value for their home to take that money and then try and purchase something up on a hill in more resilient places. The market just simply wasn't going to be able to deliver for all of those people. And quite a few people have moved on with their lives, which is great. But there are some that the Resilient Lands program is designed to assist as well and unlock land for the broader housing market and the flood affected communities as well. So we're doing that through a few different ways. There's supply side responses to deliver new land and housing. That's direct investment in actually purchasing land and doing developments. So we've had a small pilot project at Mount Pleasant in Canelabar where that approach has been taken. We've also purchased land in Lismore, or in the process of purchasing more land as well, to work with other government agency partners like Landcom and Homes New South Wales for them to deliver land at a more affordable or more attainable price point for buyback participants in particular, but also freeing up the broader housing market so that people will be able to move around and buyback participants can find homes that suit their needs. So that's primarily what it's about. We've got projects in every LGA in the Northern Rivers, one each in all the LGAs and 4 in Lismore itself. Those different projects I mentioned there before, the Lismore ones are different scales. So there's one that's going to deliver about 39 homes, another one in East Lismore around 400 lots for homes to be built on, another one in North Lismore for about 85. But various scales across the region. In the Richmond Valley, there's a development there that ultimately could yield about 1,500 lots, but that'll obviously be delivered over time. In the Clarence Valley, about 1,000 or so. In other bits of Tweed Shire, around 250 lot development, but they're all going to take time to deliver. So in those spaces where we haven't purchased land directly and that direct investment in building, unlocking land and building houses, we're also facilitating that through assistance with landowners or councils in particular particularly infrastructure costs, so water and wastewater, roundabouts. There's all sorts of things that are holding back the delivery of that land. And the biggest problem, as I mentioned, is that market failure and feasibility of development to go ahead. So there is land available. There's even DA approved land available in and around Lismore and the Northern Rivers, but is not proceeding because the developers are simply not going to make money out of it. It's not feasible to develop. So that's where the RLP is trying to step in and assist with funding for infrastructure and other things that are going to unlock that development and make it happen. So that's the main sort of focus for the Resilient Lands program. We developed a Resilient Lands strategy last year. It was adopted in August last year. So a key reference point for people interested in this project. It sets out the background and the process that went through that. There was an expression of interest for landowners to put forward land they thought might be suitable for development. We went through a very robust process with an expert panel to choose which parcel of land should be supported. And now we're working with councils, landowners and other partners to unlock that and get that development happening. The other component of the Resilient Lands program that we picked up as well is sort of finalising the Resilient Homes program as part of that package of work. Once the homes are relocated or demolished and the site is left vacant, then that needs to be rezoned and that land divested as well. And the Resilient Lands program are working with councils on that zoning and planning process. Pretty extensive community engagement will be a big part of that as well, and determining the future land use for that land, which is, a lot of it, as you'll find out, is within and close proximity to existing towns and villages across the region, particularly the Lismore CBD and South Mooloolaba CBD. But each of the little towns and villages, they're a key component of those villages. So we want to try and come up with some innovative solutions that are flood compatible for what that land could be used for going forward. So that's a really, really brief overview of what RLP is all about. Happy to take any questions.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. We might actually just stop sharing the screen and open it up to questions at this point in time while we've got you all here. We might move on. I really appreciate, in fact, I think we all appreciate the detail that the Reconstruction Authority representatives have given us. It's really complex. You're dealing with some really complex and huge programs that I would imagine are, the first cab off the rank for such a program in New South Wales, or such programs in New South Wales. So kudos to you and your staff for navigating the implementation of new, innovative resilience programs. Okay. In working with Reconstruction Authority in developing this EOI, the team at RA were really keen that the successful research team will work closely with them to develop this up into a case study and to work closely with both RHP and RLP administrators and relevant communities, to collaboratively develop a case study of assisted relocations at scale, providing actionable findings to improve the preparedness, responsiveness and efficacy of existing and future initiatives to enhance community disaster resilience. The team asked the project to examine, in the Northern Rivers context, both before and after disaster, analysing the broader economic and social and institutional governance factors that influence the design and delivery of these programs. And also looking at the homeowners' journeys through the program to identify any service delivery gaps and explore all of the different dimensions that are underpinning community and household decisions on whether to accept or decline buybacks or assisted relocations, including emotional risk, social, cultural and financial and other factors. I think that the four methodologies, if you like, or approaches that are listed on the page are a start. And I would encourage research teams to really think about what this project is trying to achieve and include any other methodologies that you think would help deliver the outcomes that we're looking for in this project. Connie's asked a question. Is the assisted relocation project has a focus on inclusive or specific programs with people with disability or special needs? At this point, the EOI does not mention that, but an EOI submission is open for research teams, to include any specific areas that you bring expertise into the project on. So I would say that what's in the EOI at the moment regarding the project is the base of the project, and if you your approach would like to consider that, it's certainly worth including that in your submission. It certainly does include a section there on engaging with the local First Nations communities to ensure or to determine what appropriate co-design processes are that lead to place-based participation and support. Now, I've said that based on what the processes are from an NHRA perspective. However, I'm cognizant that this is New South Wales Reconstruction Authority's key project with us at the moment. So I might open it up to Jane, Stephen, or Meg. In terms of Cassie's question, do you have anything that you would like to respond with to Cassie's question?
I think just some additional context around the RHP program. So the identification for properties for inclusion in the buyback stream of the program is based on flood modelling and future risk. However, homeowners can submit information in relation to their individual and exceptional circumstances, and these can be considered when determining by the program when determining a stream allocation for their property. So we do try to consider the specific individual circumstances of a homeowner and what might increase their risk profile in terms of staying within that location or not receiving a grant to improve the future resilience of their property as well. So that can either be considered through their initial application or through an internal review or an appeal submission to the program regarding their stream allocation.
That's great. Thanks, Meg. I might just move on to the expected outputs. We're running well on time. So if you've got more questions, folks, please throw them in.
Nicola, could I just
Jane,
add, just
please.
if I understand the question correctly, Connie, it's whether this particular research project has a focus on inclusive or programs specifically for people with disability. I think adding to Meg's comments, but the research project is thinking about assisted relocation in a broader frame, as in this program provides funding to buy back houses and to help people move out of high risk areas. And so that's sort of what I understand we're meaning by assisted relocation. We're assisting them through grant funding. And then there's also other ways that, Stephen spoke to around the Resilient Lands program and just general, our customer engagement team provides individual homeowners a range of support services to help them understand, for example, the process around how do you actually physically relocate a house, what are the DA requirements, or what's the process around that. So we do include people with disability and special needs, but its primary focus is all those people whose dwelling is in the high risk area and how do we assist them to get out of harm's way.
Thank you, Jane. I've just caught up. So assisted relocation can mean different things in different contexts. So it's a terminology issue that the program's called, or the project's called assisted relocation, but it's part of that broad relocation strategy that's underway. Whereas assisted relocation with those in the sector that are working with people with special needs, it's a very focused activity. I understand the linkage now across that. That being said, because it is this project's looking at the broader program of work, it could consider people with disabilities, as Meg was talking about before as well. Yeah. So thank you both for that. We might move on to the next slide, unless there's any more questions on actual the project. Jane, did you have more to add?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions in the chat. So,
Mhm.
will introductions or partnerships with local First Nations communities or organisations be facilitated by NHRA or the New South Wales RA? I think RA would help facilitate those. We hold those relationships across the region, so we'd be happy to do that. And the other question is this?
I can answer that one, Jane.
Yeah, I was hoping you could, Meg. Thank you.
So it's not restricted to private homeowners. It's the eligibility criteria is that the dwelling was primarily used for residential purposes and is a lawful or permissible dwelling, and that the ownership has remained consistent. So that could include a community organisation who owns a property within a high risk area that's been leased for community or social housing purposes. It's really about ensuring that it was a residential dwelling and was used for those purposes, and progress through the program in that way.
I was just going to say the scope of the project is restricted to the scope of the program that is being implemented by New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. Yep.
I was just going to add that on the Resilient Lands Program side, we're also provided funding to support Homes New South Wales and Landcom to deliver housing, which includes, social and affordable housing, key worker housing, and all those other aspects as well.
Are you interested in what happens to renters of relocated homes? Are we interested in terms of the scope of this research project, Meg? Are we interested in what happens to the renters of those homes that are included in this process?
I think that should be included in the scope of the program. Obviously, we know that typically, broadly speaking, in some of these higher risk locations, there tends to be a high proportion of rental properties as well. And so we understand that, the impact of the program has possibly had impacts on the rental market and those particular individuals as well. So I think that fits within the scope of the program.
Thank you. These are great questions. This is awesome engagement. So thank you, everyone. I'll move on. Feel free to keep asking them though, because these are good questions in terms of giving some bounds around what the project is expecting to deliver. But moving on to what the expected outputs are of the project, you'll do a submission. Hopefully, all of you will put in a submission. We encourage you all to put in a submission for this project. Once the project is awarded to the successful research team, then there'll be a process to co-design a project plan. And that's when we'll get right down to the specifics in terms of what's in the scope and what's not in scope. And that will be done with New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. We will establish a project management committee that will include the lead researcher, representatives from the lead end user, which is RA, of course, and representatives of NHRA, and that project management committee will provide project level governance, and they meet quarterly. They go through the quarterly reports, they check on milestone delivery, and they also help oil the engine, if you like, in terms of troubleshooting any sticky points that might come up, facilitating introductions, helping the researchers continue with the project and identify who needs to be included. From an interview perspective, from a collaboration perspective, etc. So the project plan would be the first thing off the mark after we've contracted. The team are really interested in a literature review and maybe even key interviews with personnel from existing or previous similar programs that have looked at relocation from Australia and also internationally, because they'd really like to have a bit of a comparative analysis between the relocation model that they're rolling out in Northern Rivers versus the models that have been used in other jurisdictions or nations. Yep. So that those key points of difference can be looked at, and the different contexts can also be looked at as well within that. Then either a final report, sorry, I've gone a bit too fast there, a final report or a series of reports, depending on how you segment the methodology and the milestones, delivery milestones. They're after an analysis of the evolution of their programs and how they've gotten to the point where they're at now, what's working well and for whom. The recovery post-disaster implementation and pre-disaster preparedness, so the flow-on impacts and outcomes of the program. Any key learnings for the future delivery of such programs. Of course, that will all depend on the homeowner journeys that we want to document as part of this project, and policy and practice considerations for applying those learnings. So that's really what we're after in those reports. We're also after a bit of a toolkit to support policy response in other impacted jurisdictions. Again, just noting that we're focusing on assisted relocations here only for this project. The methodology for ongoing monitoring and evaluation, workshops with New South Wales Reconstruction Authority teams and staff to apply those findings, stakeholder presentations and academic publications. Those outputs, depending on who the successful team are, research team are, will also depend on, your discussions with Reconstruction Authority as you're developing up the project plan. But if you've got any other innovative outputs that you can think of, feel free to include them in your submission. In terms of the governance side of the project and the outputs that we need for governance, there'll be quarterly reporting on our turnkey system. There'll be a final project report, a final project evaluation report, and some relevant communications products that will accompany the project. Could be presentations, could be a webinar, hazard notes. That's flexible, and we can work that out as we start pulling the project plan together. The anticipated outcomes are also included in the EOI document, but basically we want to find out, is there any new knowledge and evidence on how these programs can reduce effort, cost and time for community recovery? What is the impact, I suppose, on increasing disaster resilience and reduced hazard risk through the social and built environment change? A better understanding of the barriers and opportunities to the success and of the current program, so that can be applied straight away, but also for future program development and rollout. What are the barriers and opportunities so that agencies can better prep, I suppose, the communities to be able to roll out such programs in an effective way? An improved understanding of the community's knowledge, values and capacity impacting homeowners' ability to engage with the program and participate in the programs, and evidence on the importance of consistent and tailored support for people relocating. As we've noted, the project plan requires a high degree of collaboration, but given the nature of this work and this project, there'll be an expectation that researchers will be using ongoing collaborative approaches, especially engaging New South Wales RA, but also some of their key partners in this project. And we really want you in your submissions to outline how you're going to do that. What are your approaches to ensure effective collaboration? And we've included an example there. It might include embedding researchers with end user organisations for a period of time. And given the complexity of these two programs, that might be a good approach. Budget and timeframe. We've got a timeframe of 2 years for this project, and the budget envelope is between 250 and 300,000. Rebecca has asked, to what extent will the selected researchers join existing research teams or evaluations underway by RA research, by the Social Recovery Reference Group? Well, that's definitely a question for Reconstruction Authority, but we might not be able to answer it in this EOI briefing. However, I would suggest that if you do have knowledge of those other research projects that are going on, and you do have contact with those other research teams, it's worth putting that in your submission so that we know that there's an existing connection there. Jane, Meg, would either of you like to comment on that?
Oh, look, I think we'll need to come back to you
Yeah.
and provide an answer. But, of course, we'd want to connect people and leverage existing work that's already underway. We don't want to duplicate effort. So there'd definitely be some connection there. But to what extent, I'd need to get some advice from our team.
Thank you, Jane. And Sita has asked budget questions. In the Q&A page, you mentioned that salary costs of a tenured academic who's already paid cannot be included in the budget. However, yes, you are able to budget teaching buyout for tenured academics. So Sita, you are able to do that. We can give you some more detail, and I won't go into that today. What we will do is we'll flesh out that current FAQ that's in our suite of FAQs to provide the level of detail that you're asking in your question here, rather than going through it. But we'll definitely update that, Sita, and we'll have that updated. Kyle, by the end of the week, we'll be able to get that updated. Yep, beautiful. Thank you. So if you check in again on Friday, there'll be an answer in that FAQ section on our webpage that will meet your needs. Yes, so budget and timeframe, 2 years, and basically the 2-year timeframe commences once the project contract has been signed by the university. Once the contract's signed, that's the beginning of the 2-year timeframe. I talked a little bit about governance and reporting. In terms of the research team governance, we need a lead researcher for contracting purposes. So if you are going to put in a consortium bid, you will need to nominate a lead research institution that we are contracting with. The contract, of course, is with NHRA. I noted that we've got a project management committee, and they're the ones that will sign off on the project plan, and will include the lead researcher, the lead end user, and a rep from NHRA. You can propose a steering committee. I would say that with a project that's as complex as this, it would warrant project reference groups or project steering committees. And it's another way to bring in tacit knowledge held by those in the sector as well to help guide and steer. And you can see that we're working across 2 different branches within Reconstruction Authority. So that's something to ponder and consider, and can be worked out in the development of the project plan. With regards to reporting, we report against the project plan milestone delivery every quarter in the progress reports, and we also require a project evaluation report at the end, as well as stakeholder presentations. We also usually get our researchers and end users to come along to our annual forum to present on the project and how it's progressing over that 2-year period as well. This project is going to generate a lot of interest within the sector, a lot of interest. So, yeah, it will be great to have it included in our forum. All of the EOI information is included on the webpage that Kyle's shared with you in the chat. For any more questions that you have, please go to research@naturalhazards.com.au. And please note that all submissions need to be prepared using our EOI submission form. And there's a link to that on the webpage that Kyle's shared with you. We've got the closing date and time for our expressions of interest for this project. 5 p.m. on Monday, the 4th of August. I managed to get it stretched out. It was Friday, and I thought, well, let's give them an extra weekend, just to have a little bit more time to pull it together. So 5 p.m. on Sunday. And we've got some questions sitting there. Have we, Kyle, before we go into the detail on how you making a submission? We've got all of the details are included in the submission form. So when you go to pull your submission together, there will be limits to what you can put in what section of the submission form. But we need you to make a statement of research capability that talks about what your research team brings to the project and how it meets the requirements of the project. We also want you to share around the diversity of your team, and we're looking for things like not just research expertise, but we're looking for gender diversity, cultural diversity, so that you're bringing diversity into the team, and you've got people with different lived experience as well as research expertise on the team. We also want a statement around the project's inclusion and respect for First Nations people. we've dedicated 800 words for you to describe how the project team is going to approach the project, but that's supported by an indicative schedule of works, and that indicative schedule of works will include like the interim milestones and project outputs. We also seek a proposed project budget, including details of any in-kind contributions from research organisations. And you will be asked to also submit a separate budget proposal form into your submission as well. And there's a link for that on the webpage. We ask that you use that budget template so that we can see how much in kind is coming in, and we can also see the costs for academic staff for the project, but also if there's any other expenses that are associated with fieldwork, like travel, etc., so that we can see those components. That all helps us get a better idea of how you're going to approach the project. We'd like you to provide a statement on the outcomes, describing the outcomes, and there's a section in the submission form for that, as well as the outputs. So outputs being what the project generates, and outcomes is how those outputs would be applied and how they will have an outcome in the how the outputs will have an outcome in the existing program, but also for future programs associated with assisted relocation. We also ask for your industry engagement history. So we'd like you to include some examples of how well you've engaged with industry in the past on projects and what sort of industry or sectors you've engaged with as well. Gives us a feel for a collaborative approach that will be used. We're also after a risk management statement, which is essentially a risk management plan for the project from your perspective. You'll find a link on the webpage and in the submission form to our templated contract for research projects. And it's worth having a look at that because we need to know if your university or entity will require any changes to that proposed form of contract as part of the EOI process. So there's a section in the submission form where you can outline what sort of changes are required. And for those of you with from academic institutions, it might even be worth liaising with your contracts team at uni to have a look at the template form to see if there's any changes that are required. And we also ask you to provide a 2-page CV for each of your research team members as well, which gives you an opportunity to highlight their teaching background, their research expertise, their publication record, but also their industry engagement record, which would be great. We will be posting a recording of this presentation, Stephen, to the EOI webpage. Once we've got it edited, it'll go up on there. But all of this information is available within the EOI. Just a little bit on the evaluation process. So once we receive the EOI submissions, and hopefully we'll get a lot of them, and we encourage you to put your submissions in if you're interested in this piece of work. We use an assessment or an evaluation criteria, a set of criteria, and the weighting that we've used for this project is essentially equal. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and there's a big typo in here. That 10 there should be a 20. So basically we've given an equal weighting, and I'll fix that up. We've given an equal weighting to all of these criteria. So we will equally be looking at research capability, your project approach, the project outcomes and outputs, your industry engagement, and we'll also be looking at value for money. And where we're looking at, the ability to leverage the funds that we provide with in-kind contributions from the submitters. Yeah. So it's an equal weighting. Please ignore that 10. My apologies. It's all 20, a weighting of 20 across all of them. For the timeframes, the key dates. So we opened the EOI on the 30th of June. Today is the 16th of July. That's the project briefing. It closes on the 4th of August. We hope that we will be able to notify everybody by the 25th of August on the outcome, but sometimes our procurement processes, just for particular reasons, might take a bit longer. So these are indicative dates over this side. We're hoping for a contract to be awarded and the team to submit a co-developed project plan by the 30th of September. They're the intended dates. That's the end of the slides, and we've got 1 minute left. How are we going for questions? Have we got any more questions in the chat? Does New South Wales RA folk want to add any further detail to what we've covered today?
No, look, I think it's been great, Nicola. Thanks for working with us on this and for the opportunity to do this research. It's really important research. There are some things that we're doing really differently in the Northern Rivers that haven't, as we assume, haven't been done elsewhere, and to try to capture those and understand the impacts of those, positive and negative, is really important. We appreciate that it's it's not that we're always constrained by budget, and it would be obviously be good to be able to put more funds towards this, but so we're hoping for some really focused innovative approaches, I suppose, to the research. We do have really well established relationships across the region, so we can support introducing and making those connections for the researchers with various stakeholders, and very happy to, if there's any questions that people have after this briefing that they send through, we'll work with you, Nicola, to answer them. But yeah, hope there's a lot of interest in helping us capture the learnings from this region.
Thank you, Jane. It's a really important project to document. Yep, the rollout of the program, it's important to document, and we're really excited to be working with New South Wales RA on supporting this project going forth as well. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That takes up an hour of your time. We did start a little bit late, but I don't think there's any other questions. I think that we've received some nice feedback in the chat there, Jane, in terms of how excited folk are about the project. So everyone, thank you very much for your time. New South Wales RA, thank you very much for participating this morning and contributing to this briefing. I really, really appreciate it, as I'm sure everybody else does as well. And let's look forward to lots of submissions, hey?